One of our impediments as a people is, number one, we celebrate athletics more than we do academics for our children. That's bad math. The other thing is we put our children in the sports, and so do white people. But white people put their children in sports to extract the principles from it. And we put our children in sports to become a professional at it.
By the end of the 2022-23 school year, over 7.8 million students competed in high school sports. Of those 7.8 million, only 530,000 will go on to play sports in college, meaning only 6.8% of students will be selected to compete at a higher level. Of those 530,000 who played basketball, only 1.2% will be drafted to the NBA. Of those who played football, only 1.6% will go on to be drafted to the NFL. Now, this isn't accounting for your free agents, your overseas competition, your developmental league competition. Now, if your whole life revolved around sports and your one dream doesn't work out, what do you do? Now, of course, you have success stories of people who go on to make a brand out of their sports like career and they go on to have success outside of the sport. But what about the overwhelming people who lack this talent to market their skills and they fall by the wayside? The stories and voices who aren't heard, the ones who are just pushed down the bottom and they have to try to claw their way up to the top.
When conflict broke out in Cameroon's northwest region, many things ground to a halt, but not Kenneth Nkwane's dream of playing in the NBA. Without proper facilities, the 20-year-old trains using makeshift equipment and techniques he's taught himself.
Not just talent in basketball in the northwest region, there are a lot of talent here. Football, soccer, school, and other stuff like that. But kids just giving up just because of where they come from and due to the COVID-19 and stuff like that. So basketball, I just want to use that platform. I just want to use basketball as a platform I can inspire other people to work so hard to achieve their own dreams.
Nkwane has turned this former storeroom into a gym where he works out to stay in shape. Some of his peers in the north and southwest regions have joined rebels fighting for self-rule. But Nkwane's sweat is in pursuit of a basketball dream.
I tried as much as I can to improvise with what I have around me, like the bottles you saw today. I use the bottles like cones and the tires to keep fit. You know, basketball is a game played with a lot of strength, not just all about bouncing and stuff like that. It also do with the mental and the physical part of it. So I just need to be prepared when the time comes.
Well, they lack guidance and leadership. But the word I want to focus on in this video is mentorship. Today, I'm going back to review my past 2 to 3 videos that talked about generational poverty, especially for the men in my hometown, because they lack one thing that's called mentorship. And why they lack this is because unless you play sports or do any kind of extracurricular activity that revolves around sports, you won't get the mentorship that you seek. Now, why am I different? What makes me different? Well, sit back, relax, and I'll tell you why. I knew nothing about sports until the 8th grade. I'm a late bloomer. I started playing sports late. Now, just a disclaimer, anything I say throughout this video is my perception as a child. My perception was only my reality because I can only speak for where I grew up and what I was exposed to and what I saw from a childlike perspective. And as I got older, even now looking back, my viewpoints, they may shift because with age comes maturity. But I was more focused on school, whether or not people noticed if I was wearing the same pants 2 days in a row, whether they noticed whether or not I had on no socks, wearing high top shoes. I was focused on these small things. So sports, they came at a later date. I started playing in 8th grade. Prior to that, I had male mentors because I was in the spelling bee and book clubs as far back as elementary school. And the mentors I had there, they were decent, solid men, very respectable. But we moved around a lot. So if I move, I lose contact. I don't have a phone. I'm only a child. So how do I stay in contact with my mentor? Right? That's what I was running into. But now with all these phones and connectability, it's easy to stay connected. It sounds like I'm about to do an ad plug in. But as I was saying, the more I moved, I lost contact with my mentor. So what they did teach me, I lost the knowledge over the summer because I was with my granddad. And he served as a pillar or mentor for me at the time. But my granddad, he only knew what he knew, which was handiwork. So I was never instilled with confidence as a young boy or young child. But what I did notice was that athletes had the most confidence. Well, I saw it as confidence, but looking back, it was arrogance and cockiness because they were known. They would get their names announced when they were coming to school after a big win or even a loss sometimes. So when I did start playing, I was just out there to have fun. Now, luckily for me, I was very athletic. I was always one of the fastest or one of the strongest on any team I played on. Now, the thing is, I lacked the confidence. That's the key. The key is confidence and mentorship. They both go hand in hand.
And that's why so many children go into sports, the black boys. It ain't because they necessarily want to be an athlete. This is the only way I'm going to survive or get recognized here.
My mind never really grasped it until later on I get to high school. So I'm going. I never really had a male mentor that just took me under his wing and gave me a lot of solid advice. Now there were male influences who uh pulled me to the side and tried to keep me on track because they knew that I would be special. Because I value my education more than anything else. Because I knew, speaking back to those numbers, I didn't know the exact numbers, but I did know that there's a lot of men in my hometown who bragged about playing sports. But like I said, they're still in my hometown. And I realized that maybe this is not something that I want to do. When it's a city of people who hyper focus on sports, that becomes their entire personality. They warp their minds around sports. And when it doesn't work out, you go and you see people who their mind is so focused on sports that they don't even realize that that ship has long sailed. You're 25, 30, 40 years old, still talking about that game where you had the game winning catch or through the game winning touchdown. And I just knew that this wasn't something that I wanted to be. So when you're a coach as your only male figure, you're only focused on the sport, on what sports you're playing. No matter what you do, your coach is coming to your rescue. And I know it's a lot of negative behavior would be allowed to go on if a sports player stood out more. You could cuss a coach out and play in the game the next day, as long as you were able to deliver. Now, these patterns of bad behavior will go on and on and on. I'm thinking, well, maybe that's not smart to do. It's not a sustainable model because eventually, when you're not there to rescue him or her, you're gonna make a negative decision. And since it's being allowed to happen so bad, they're gonna make more and more negative decisions. It's almost like a what? A poverty cycle, right? Once the negative behavior is allowed to go on for so long, it gets heavy, so it becomes imbalanced. So they keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And the male coaches, they only care about one thing, their job. Or if their record is good enough, they can leave and go to a better school to get a better paying job that's not in the city where things aren't good, because the boys who don't get a lot of attention, they fall by the wayside. And what happens to a male who isn't getting attention? They go look for it in different places. They go look for somewhere to belong, to feel like a part of a pack. So now what? Now you have gangs that's popping up. Meanwhile, on the team, it's a group within the group. You have gangs and different factions that are starting to pop up, all because the coach wouldn't pay attention to his players. All because there are no male role models. Now, it's not a coach's job to lead a boy. It's a coach's job to lead a team. Now, granted, I understand that now. That's the father's problem. That's the mom's problem. But the mom is sometimes putting her responsibility off on the coach because she doesn't want to deal with it. Which is most of the time, I've heard plenty of women in my hometown say, I'm a put you in football if you keep acting a certain way. And I'm like, isn't it supposed to be like a fun sport to play, right? I have fun when I'm playing. I don't go out there trying to have a Mamba mentality. It's just a fun sports game. Because when you don't make it, you think back to all those times where you were practicing extra longer, where you could have been studying or learning a newer skill to separate yourself from your peers. And that was my only goal. Like I said, I stared off in space so much. I was just staring because I'm focused on how am I gonna separate myself. Because obviously I'm not getting the proper playing time I want. I'm not playing, so what else can I do to stand out and stick out more, to go and become something bigger than where I'm from? What can I do? Now that's me. That's how I thought. I never ever put myself in the mind to think of what someone else could have been possibly been going through. Everyone's situation is unique to themselves. And how I may have felt, someone could have felt 10 times worse. I've been going through something much worse than I have. And I acknowledge that 100%. I just compartmentalize it so well. And looking back on it is actually a gift that I was able to do so. But what about the people who aren't able to compartmentalize when they're cast away to the side, like stray dogs that, well, they're cast away to the side like a prize fighting dog who can't win or has a weak bite? Well, they wonder and wonder and wonder. They just wonder. And then this leads to higher crime rates. In 2023, over 36% of crimes were were committed by people who were within the age ranges of 18 to 29. Now, this is the prime of your youth, right after high school. You're still finding yourself. Like a lot of these boys who want to get recruited by these colleges, but we were never educated on the whole maneuvering college process. We're only taught about sports. And the ones who are taught about it, they don't have that coach mentorship because now you're in a new system. You're in a new town now. And the attitude that was allowed in your hometown isn't allowed because that's not how the world operates. And I thought, well, maybe this is just my hometown. Maybe it's just like this here. Right? Maybe if I left, I would see better opportunities to stand out, right? Because hard work pays off, doesn't it? Right? And this is where I go to how I became so objective. Because when I left home for the military, and the more further west I went, I was stationed in Hawaii. It's the same thing in the military. Favoritism exists everywhere. You really can't escape it unless you start your own company and business and instill your own values and beliefs into your own company. And even then, you're going to be biased because you're looking for people with that same kind of mentality as you, or you're looking to use people for what they can provide you for, which is what most of the coaches I've seen in my hometown do. Not all, only the ones that I see. I'm pretty sure some people have their own stories to tell too, but this is my story. So what am I doing about it besides making videos? Like my last two videos, it's like I'm complaining about a problem. So what are you doing to help solve the problem? Well, I believe in power by education. When you know better, you do better. That's the principles that I live off of. If you know better, you will in fact do better. But when people aren't open to being educated on topics, it's not much I can do. Of course, you can do actions. Of course, you can go and give to charity. But if you're not overseeing the day-to-day operations and not knowing what's going on with your money, you're gonna be feel less inclined to give money to random people that you don't know. You can read the reviews, of course you can, but you still don't know. So I just believe in educating people, and maybe this video will help people to see what I see, or open their eyes, or at least squinch them open a little bit, just to see what's actually going on around them. Because, like I said, when I gained consciousness, I started seeing these things early on, and I don't know how much different my life would have been if I would have started playing sports earlier. Would I have gotten the mentorship that I desired so bad? That would have led to me having more confidence. Because mentorship leads directly to confidence. Because like, the more you know, you're able to stand on your words. When you don't, when you question yourself so much, you're scared to say anything. You're scared to call something out because, am I right? You become agnostic. Am I right? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say anything. And that leads to less and less confidence. That's why I would go in my shell and just think, cultivating my mind day by day. Just cultivating, hoping one day I have a voice to speak out, and hopefully my voice is heard somewhere. I mean, not to brag or nothing, but I am a self-made thousandaire. pretty popular on YouTube. I got what, 88 subscribers. Not to brag. I mean, just a life flex. But I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to educate by making simple videos, because the best way to put out a fire is to not stand in the center of it. It's to stand away from afar and let the firefighters do it. No, I'm joking. But it's to just to try to bring in resources from afar to stop the fire from spreading. Because as you guys know, fire is very powerful, and once it touches something, it's bound to be destroyed eventually. It may warm it for a little bit, but if I can pull you out, the most you will have is a surface wound. But the ones who are stuck in there, I wish I could come in and help, but there's only so much I can do from afar. But don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Before I get out of here, Hollywood did a great job at romanticizing the struggle in sports. It's like it went hand in hand. Decimated household, drugs, all this other stuff. But out of the whole city of maybe roughly 20 to 30,000 people, maybe 5 to 10,000, you're the one main person who is gonna make it, which probably is a testament to those numbers I mentioned earlier in the video. It's like your coach. You think about it, like the coach takes a kid in. Oh, I see potential in this boy who's 6'9", 255 pounds. I see potential in him. Well, yeah, anyone would. Anyone would. And he's not the only poor kid in school either. He's not. So why doesn't the coach try to point out more kids? I mean, they don't have to per se, but it's like the cycle doesn't end unless it has to be a disruption. Who is gonna be the disruptor? Are you the disruptor in the cycle? I know for a fact, and I say with the utmost confidence, that I am a disruptor in my cycle of poverty. I will be something different. And no thing will be able to make me see it as different. Nothing. So do you feel the same way? Let me know in the comment section. Peace.